Hello everybody, how are you all doing today? Welcome back to Gingeunderthesea for another shark talk. Now, when everyone grows up, they learn about the birds and the bees, but we don't learn about the sharks and the rays. So today's topic is going to be shark reproduction. How do they do it? How are they born? What's all that about? So the first thing we should cover is how different their reproduction is to most other fish. So the bony fish in the ocean, the reef fish, and the game fish, they all use external fertilization. So this means the males will release their semen in the water, the females will release their eggs in the water, and these eggs and sperm will mix in the water and be fertilized in the ocean, and then they will just drift off in the currents. Now, these fish release thousands and thousands of eggs at a time. It is thought that the fish that releases the most eggs is the mola, and they release up to 300 million eggs. Most of these won't grow up to adulthood because they'll get eaten by animals and other sea life in the ocean. But sharks and rays have a different tactic. They decide to develop much fewer young, and they let them out into the ocean when they have a much higher chance of survival and they're much bigger and much more developed. Because this form of reproduction takes up so much more energy, sharks usually have a year or two in between breeding cycles to recover their energy because that pregnancy has taken so much energy away from them. Okay, so as I mentioned before, sharks use internal fertilization. So this means the male and the female sharks have to come together, and the male will insert the sperm into the female to impregnate her. After that, the sharks will go their separate ways, and in fact, we see a lot of sexual segregation between species, which means that males and females don't really hang out apart from for direct mating. So once the female is fertilized, sharks use 3 different ways to develop their young. The first one is oviparous. This means egg-laying, which means the females will develop an egg or a number of eggs inside the uterus, and then they will lay them once they're ready on the coral or on the rocks. And what these eggs, or mermaids' purses as they're known, they will have little tendrils, as you can see in the photo here, and you'll see lots of tiny little strings that they actually use to wrap around kelp or rocks to anchor those eggs down so they don't just drift off in the current. The females know that they're in a secure place, and those eggs will sometimes be there up to 12 months to develop, so they need to be really hard and secure, and that's why their cases are so tough. Even along Britain, which isn't thought of as such a sharky place, there is actually a lot of sharks down waters, and if you go and walk along the beach, there is quite a good chance of you bumping into a little egg case that has hopefully already hatched a small shark or a ray. If you are lucky enough to find any of these egg cases on the beach, then brilliant, take a photo of them, and you can actually go onto the Shark Trust website and record your finding, and you'll be able to work out what species of shark or ray that was born there. And also that data goes to Shark Trust, and they keep a log of all the different specimens and species that are reported, and they can get a bit of an idea of the species distribution around the UK. So about 40% of all sharks use the oviparous method, so our egg laying. This includes sharks like the horn shark, epaulet shark, zebra shark. These are generally bottom-dwelling sharks that more often will lay eggs as they are near the bottom, and they can hide them in rocky crevices and different areas to make sure their eggs are protected. Okay, method 2 of reproduction for sharks is called viviparous, which means live born. Okay, so what will happen here is the females will develop the young inside their uterus, and they will be attached to an umbilical cord. So this is very similar to how mammals and how we actually reproduce. Okay, so our babies and humans have an umbilical cord attached to a placenta inside the mother, and that is exactly how sharks do it. They may have a number of different sharks in there, but they will all be attached with an umbilical cord. The gestation period for this can be even longer than oviparous because they develop sharks to be even bigger. So once the pups are ready to be born, the mother will usually go into some shallow area of water like mangroves, which is why mangroves are so important for shark populations, because they are the nurseries where sharks are born and where sharks spend the first few years of their lives. So the mum will go into the mangroves and will give birth to these live young. This form of reproduction is used by a lot of the Carcahini form or ground sharks. So that is bull sharks, lemon sharks, hammerhead sharks. They all use viviparous, and it's thought that this is the most evolved form of reproduction. Right? So this is the newest one in the newest species, such as the hammerhead, which has only been around 20 million years. So what I'll do is I'll link a video up here to a lemon shark actually giving birth, so you can see the young, you can see their umbilical cords, and you can see how that process goes on. Really incredible video. And again, this is in those mangroves that I was saying are just so important for shark population. And number 3, it is the most interesting and also the hardest to say, Ovoviviparous is the third form of reproduction we are going to talk about today. And it's sort of a mixture of both of them. So ovoviviparous meaning egg, but also meaning live birth. So what happens in these sharks, such as the ragged-toothed shark and the great white, they will develop an egg inside their uterus, but then the pup will actually be born out of this egg inside the uterus once they have used up the yolk sac for energy. Therefore, the shark or the pup will be swimming around inside the uterus, and they will actually be feeding on other food sources inside the uterus. They won't be on an umbilical cord, and they won't use placenta to be directly fed energy from the mother, but they will actually be feeding on food sources inside the uterus, such as other unfertilized eggs, other embryos, and their brothers and sisters. So this form of reproduction is pretty hardcore, because those babies inside the uterus are actually killing and eating their brothers and sisters, so they are born already prime hunters, ready to go and eat some fish. So the eating of their brothers and sisters is known as embryo offergy, and it varies between different species. So the ragged-toothed shark, for example, is well known for embryo offergy, and that is why the ragged-toothed sharks will only give birth to 2 pups. This is because they have 2 separate sections of their uterus, and they'll only ever have 1 surviving pup in each part of their uterus. But also great whites are also ovoviviparous. It's not really known how many pups that great white sharks actually give birth to. Now there is still so much unknown about certain species of shark, like the whale shark and the great white. They still are not sure how many pups they give birth to, where they give birth. These are still questions that are to be answered, but we do have a good idea in general how sharks reproduce, and it's through those 3 different methods. So guys, I hope you really enjoyed the talk today. Remember to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, comment on what you enjoyed most, and if you have any further questions or what you want me to do in the future, don't forget to click the subscribe button if you want to catch any more of my talks and continue to learn about sharks, and check out my T-mail account below to have a look at some of the clothing I've designed, help support me and also circular and sustainable fashion. Thank you guys for joining, and I'll see you next time.